Well, hello, welcome to the Irish Independence League of Ireland preview video, joined today by Aidan Fitzmaurice to look ahead to another 5 games this weekend. Now, Aidan, what a week it's been over the last couple of days. Last Friday, obviously, we had the awful flare trouble at Oriel Park and the Loud Derby, which dominated discussions across the country, across the weekend and in the last couple of days. Then at the start of the week, we had Shamrock Rovers coming out with a statement on an issue regarding something in Michael Noonan's contract, and that FAI CEO David Carrell was asked about that on Wednesday, and we also had the news on Wednesday that Ireland's game against Israel will go ahead as planned on October 4th at the Aviva Stadium. So it's been a busy week on the football front on a couple of fronts.
Yeah, I think everyone's paused breath, get back to action on the field, but it has been where League of Ireland led the news agenda for most days, with Patrick O'Donnell's very, very strong comments about the league and the reaction to the flares, the fact that Patrick O'Donnell, as Minister responsible, was in Oriel Park to see the damage, the charge and counter-charge, the reaction to his very strong comments saying a plague in all your houses, as if to say this is a League of Ireland problem. If you don't fix this, he's going to come down on all of the League of Ireland, not the individuals from Drogheda United who threw those flares at the Michael Noonan issue. That's all fed into Shamrock Rovers' situation, their performance on Monday and how important the derby is this week. And of course the Israel thing, players have been brought into that now, where the PFAI have the Players Union have voted, asked their members for their views, and a majority, 63%, don't want the Israel games to go ahead. So a lot of that will be parked for 90 minutes on Friday, but these issues are going to carry on, particularly for Shamrock Rovers, who've had a difficult week politically for the club in terms of dealing with the fallout from the Michael Noonan issue. That didn't affect really the result on Monday in terms of the disappointment and drop points at home to Dundalk, but it was a flat performance, not the clinical edge that we expect from Shamrock Rovers. And all derbies are important. The Bows Rovers derby is always important, no matter where the clubs are in the table. But for Shamrock Rovers to go into this game and to drop points again would be a huge issue for them in their season. Accept how very early it is, but just Shamrock Rovers need a break on the field to get some, because they feel that everyone's coming at them now from all angles. Shamrock Rovers now need their players to ignore that noise and that focus and try and deliver a performance away to Bohemians.
We'll have a look at the games in a second, and of course I know you're heading to Daily Man on Friday night for the big derby, the first Bows Rovers derby of the season, but I was speaking to Hoops captain Roberto Lopez on Thursday morning, and obviously he's PFAI Ireland chairperson as well, and he was very strong, saying 63% of League of Ireland players voted in favour of a boycott of the games. And FAI CEO David Carrell coming out on Wednesday and saying, in his view, that did not represent, he said in his view that represents a mixed viewpoint. And I put that to Roberto Lopez, and there was no two ways about it. Roberto Lopez saying 63%, it's a clear majority. The feeling amongst the players and the managers is clear. We've heard from Stephen Bradley, Jerry O'Brien, Stephen Kenny as well on this issue, and it feels like an issue that they have made the decision. The games are going ahead, but it's going to dominate discussions for the next couple of months.
And that was a poor comment from David Carrell to say to qualify or water down that vote by saying it was only 63%, as if it didn't matter. You know, if it was marginally, 50.4%, you could maybe argue, but 63 is a strong majority. And if the FAI want to get into voting rights or a majority, like 93% of the General Assembly voted for the FAI to propose a motion, to accept the motion to ask UEFA to expel Israel from international competition. So it's democracy. You can't ignore democracy. And I think that's what very dangerous road the FAI are going down with, that, trying to water down what the players have said. They don't speak one voice. We assume there are players who don't agree. There are players who strongly agree in Israel and we shouldn't play them. There are players who agree the other way, that we should play them. For some people feel play the games but make a protest during the game. Others will say, play them, politics shouldn't come into it. And other players who don't care, they just care about getting over their knee injury in time for the weekend. But the players have spoken, and that should be respected.
Roberto Lopez, obviously the leading voice for players in this country, the leading voice of the Players Union. In his view, this isn't over from their point of view. He says there's still lots more which can be done, a lot more pressure which can put on UEFA to take the decision out of the FAI's hands. But Aidan, I suppose we will get on to Derby, on to football matters. Bohemians have made a really strong start to the season, 7 points from 3 games, 3 clean sheets, and we've seen Rovers really dominate in the league the last much of the last 6 or 7 years in terms of titles, but last year Bows enjoyed the upper hand in the derbies, 3 wins in 4, obviously a famous comeback win in Tala, and they won both games at Dalymount, so form is on their side coming into Friday.
The big thing for Bohemians this season is whatever the wins and the points, the clean sheets, 3 clean sheets in a row. That I think is huge. It's a sign of the work done. The transfer market over the season, Sam Todd and Pat Hickey have been very, very strong. So the team is built around them. I think Bows in the past had to chop and change an awful lot. Last season they never really replaced Sean Grehan, and the back unit changed an awful lot. Lee Kavanagh came in, Keane Byrne came back. It was an awful lot of chopping and changing. It looks like now that is that Bows central core, and they with Dara Power and they can move Flores around. They have options to change in terms of wing backs, but they look very, very strong, and it's probably the most confident Bows have been going into a derby in a long time. They will see Shamrock Rovers is wounded. Shamrock Rovers, you have to accept as well, they made 8 changes between the first and second game of the season. The bench for the first game of the season was astonishing. I think they had 4 full internationals on the bench. They have a squad that nobody else has, can cope with. As strong as everybody else is, they don't have 4 internationals on the bench. So it's a huge test of Shamrock Rovers to see. They will bring a lot of those back in. A lot of those players who missed the Dundalk game will come back in. It's going to be frantic, it's going to be frenetic, it's going to be cool heads, but I think Bohemians seem a lot calmer now as a team than they were maybe last year or the year before.
I was in Tala last week, Rovers beating St. Pat's 2-0, and as you mentioned there, on the bench, I think midway through second half, bringing on Graham Burke, Jack Byrne and Michael Noonan, as you mentioned, 2 internationals and 1 who's tipped to make that breakthrough in the next couple of years as well. An absolute joke of 3 players to be bringing on at that point in the game. Michael Noonan getting the breakthrough only 1 minute later. That was a really strong win for them, just to get off the mark for the season. But then it was, obviously you mentioned the 8 changes there, Dundalk last week, mistake from Ed McGinty at the death, giving Dundalk a well-deserved point. Like, Dundalk were superb in the second half. So, yeah, really exciting Dublin Derby to look forward to on Friday. We might move on to Drogheda against Shelbourne. I'm heading up to that this Friday night, and I suppose it's impossible to talk about this game without talking about the week that was for the 10 days that have been for Drogheda. You had you'd almost, everything that's happened in the last couple of days, you'd almost forget about the Joanna Byrne situation last week. The Flares story kind of took over on Friday and across the weekend. Really, you'd say worrying comments from Kevin Doherty speaking after the match last week in terms of the uncertainty in terms of the owners around the club, considering their positions at the moment as well. We'll have to see what happens there. I think from Kevin Doherty's point of view, they'll be glad just to put all the noise to one side and try to get a result this
There is always
Friday.
this debate in football, distraction, and journalists as media, we put it to players, whether it's Ireland or League of Ireland or anybody else. It's an issue in the background. So with the issues with the FAI over the last few years, does that distract the players? Job losses as a club, but you do have the 2 clubs who've been in the news this week, Shamrock Rovers and Drogheda. Can that impact them? What's happened to Drogheda won't impact how the players approach the game, and their professionals and everything else, but as a club it has destabilised. You have a clear gulf between what Joanna Byrne, a sitting TD, Sinn Féin, the spokesperson in sport for the chief opposition party, co-chair of Drogheda United, in clear conflict with what the owners of the club has said. And Drogheda's been a very happy place for the last couple of years. It's been a really good news story, getting Europe, even though they didn't get to play, sold out every week. Drogheda United is a different club to what it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. They weren't getting full houses. They are now. They're attracting players. They have those links in with Trevella to be able to attract players. And there's a challenge as well for Kevin Doherty to try and keep it on the road, because with Shamrock Rovers as well, it could easily lose the rails, and a run of 2 games without a win becomes 4, and then that builds and builds, and that's when doubt seeps in. From my point of view, I saw Shelbourne last week, and again, Shelbourne, everything is okay in the background. Joey O'Brien spoke about the Israel issue last week, but it was quite frustrating night at Talca Park last week. Shelbourne had a huge amount of possession and came away with a draw. Galway United, full credit to Galway United. They'd 1 attack, 1 shot on goal, and got a goal. John Caulfield will be absolutely delighted with how his players set up. They've since strengthened the squad. They don't really have options up front. Chris Tvardek came on and played up front in place of Lomboto. They've since signed Franz Piero. That's another huge addition to have. So full marks to Galway for their brilliant job by John Caulfield and his staff to get that point. But Shelbourne, to so much possession and not work Evan Watts until the last 20 minutes. Very, very frustrating night for Shelbourne, and I think you'll see changes in the Shelbourne team for this week. Mipo Adebeko didn't start last week. He had an injury, so if he's fit, will he come in? Freitas, the Portuguese striker, difficult night for him. He came in with a lot of potential. He got booked. It just wasn't happening for him. He got booked later on for a dive, little things like that. And Shelbourne injuries as well. We have to see Oran Casey, their big marquee signing over the summer, went off injured. They finished with 10 men. He got injured when all the subs have been made.
Paddy Barrett too. I think they've signed a defender or two.
But still, but if you're missing Paddy Barrett and Oran Casey, that's the core of your team. We mentioned Todd and Nicky for Bohemians earlier on. Shelbourne build out from Spiel out through Barrett and Casey. If that spine is gone, it really does weaken Shelbourne.
We'll move on to St. Pat's against Dundalk. Obviously, it's impossible to, when this fixture comes around, not to talk about St. Pat's boss Stephen Kenny managing against his son, Owen, striker for Dundalk, who was really impressive. Not just him, the whole Dundalk team against Shamrock Rovers last Monday night. It was a real game of two halves. Shamrock Rovers, you mentioned there, Shelbourne last week having so many chances, so much possession. It was really the case for Shamrock Rovers last week. Dominated the first half against Dundalk. 1-0 up at the break, and you were kind of thinking, okay, will they just press on, make it 2 wins in 4 days, and happy days, I suppose. But Dundalk came out a new side the second half. Whatever Kieran Kilduff said at half time worked. An absolute treat. They were full value for the point. I know it did come. The leveller did come from a mistake at the very end, but they had a couple of chances as well. And the quality there, like Daryl Horgan, Keith Buckley, Owen Kenny, as I mentioned there, Tehan too. I know a couple of us tipped them to struggle this year, but so far so good, coming in off that 1-1 draw in the Louth Derby and a really well-deserved point in Tallaght.
And I think Dundalk will get better. It is a new setup. They're back in a lot of challenges there. They're back in new ground, new lights, back in the Premier Division. A lot of new players. And I thought they were gone. I didn't think they have enough quality, but they've just started really, really, really well. I think they will get better. St. Pat's probably a different scenario. They've had a lot of injuries pre-season. We haven't seen Max Mata was their hope for goals, having lost Mason Melia. We haven't seen him yet. Simon Power is injured. Aidan Keena was involved last week. We don't know what the story is with him. So a lot of injuries. So while Dundalk people will be very, very happy with that start of the season, unbeaten in three, really showing grit and determination to go to Tallaght and to come back like that and get a fortuitous goal in terms of the mistake by McGinty. But you imagine that this week around Dundalk, as a town, as a club, as a fan base, as a group, they're quite happy. And St. Pat's, no goals. I'd be a little bit concerned about St. Pat's, the fact that no goals and not creating enough. It's not that it's just that Mata is missing. They're just not really creating enough.
Pivotal is probably too strong a word because it is still so early in the season, but with this game now on Friday and then St. Pat's host Galway United on Monday night and the rescheduled game, does it feel like a really important couple of days for them? As you mentioned, no goals, still waiting for their first win. We'll have to wait and see. The new Wolf Tones jersey might not make an appearance yet because the 2 games are at home. We'll have to wait and see, but it kind of feels like a big couple of days just to ease some of the nervous vibes around. It
does. I think you need to forget about performances and get even this early stage off, and that comes in later on where maybe you've got injuries, you're dealing with the European clogged calendar, everything else, that's just about grinding them out. Normally this is when you expect to see teams, starting to gel and showing what they're capable of. St. Pat's just need a result in those 2 games, because particularly so Bohemians keeping clean sheets, St. Pat's not scoring goals. That has to be a concern. And yet they will be stronger when they have Mata back, if they have Aidan Keena back, but just to have no goals after two games will be a concern. So I think it's a case of if winning this game or getting a result is a corner up to Joe Redmond or Tom Gravosti or whatever it is, it's about Highwood Park, nice football and vision and plans and everything else, and just focus on getting absolute St. Pat's need a result in those 2 games.
A big one coming up there at Richmond Park. Aidan, just finally the 2 fun games of the weekend: Derry City hosting Waterford and Galway United against Sligo Rovers. I suppose firstly on Derry City, hosting Waterford, 2 sides who really, really could do with a win this Friday. Derry only having 4 points from their 3 home games so far. Another home game. I know we've mentioned a lot about how they need to capitalise on this kind of quirky start of the season they have with the pitch redevelopments and the kind of rescheduled fixtures. Question marks over too about James McLean and his impact. Is he best in midfield or is he best off on the wing? it kind of really feels like Tiernan Lynch's side need a result here just to ease the tensions a little bit.
There is tension, definitely unhappiness with the start of the season, because they made it clear they're winning the league. The title was to win this league this year. Anything else was a disappointment. That came
Chairman came out, I think.
Chairman, that came from the club. That's a clear goal. That's not saying, well, we'll push for Europe. A lot of clubs, their aim is to get into Europe, push for top 4, go on a cup run, improving last season. Derry needed to win the league, and unfortunately losing Brian Maher. He's been a mainstay of the team for a couple of years. A long time since he missed a league game. They've changed goalkeepers twice now. They shake Callister in for the first one, they beat in for the second one. He was quite poor for the goal that Bohemians scored, Dawson's boy scored last week. So that's another question mark. And I think it is a topic, if you're around Derry this week, a lot of that topic is around James McLean. With a marquee signing like that comes pressure where he has to deliver, and a lot of people in Derry are not convinced that central role is best for him, that there's so much focus around that, expecting him to deliver. Is it the pressure, the burden on James McLean to deliver? Is that becoming too much? Is it having two McLeans in the team? But clearly it's been a very poor start in Derry. They had that advantage of having all those home games at the start. They have to make those up with a lot of away trips later in the season, so pressure on Tiernan Lynch as well to turn that around.
Big couple of days coming up for Galway United, of course, hosting Sligo Rovers this Friday, and then a trip to the capital to face St. Pat's on Monday in that rescheduled fixture. I suppose they've made an okay start to the season. It wasn't ideal losing the first game to Drogheda to that late goal, but you saw them at Tulka last week. You were impressed. Kind of, you know what you're going to get. They're going to be tight at the back, but going forward, that capture coup signing Franz Perrault, that's a big signing.
Yeah, and you look at last year, where what carried them in the first half of the season last year and got the points that probably did contribute to keep them up was Moses Dyer, and they didn't really replace him. That's probably what they see in Piero. And John Caulfield said after the Shelbourne game last week that it's very hard to attract players with the budget. Finding accommodation, it is very, very hard to attract players, so it is a real coup to get Piero. He's been in the league before. He's a Haitian international. I assume he didn't come cheap. I'm sure there's a good package there in terms of accommodation and bonuses and everything else, so it is an investment. It is a bit of a gamble. John Caulfield is convinced that this guy who's played internationally and has played and scored in the league before can deliver. But Galway, you know what you're going to get, and that's not a criticism. I know people criticise the way John Caulfield sets them up and the way they play. As I said, watching them away to Shelbourne last week reminded me of how Ireland often set up under Martin away from home. It's not there for pretty football. It's not there to entertain. It's there to get a result, and they did that. And if on that bus home, one shot on target, one goal, 1 point, that is a huge achievement for us. So Galway fans will say more of the same. And then as the team beds in, a lot of new players there as well. Team beds in. Sligo, a little bit of concern about their start as well. John Russell has questioned, particularly after the Bohemians game, the how poor they were. Questioned the character of the players.
James McManus obviously coming back this week.
Yeah,
well,
I think that's a big signing as well, because he was so strong for them last year. I'm surprised Bohemians let him go, to be honest. They've obviously felt they wouldn't have room to play him, or he wouldn't get enough games. And James wants games. He's ambitious on the international scene with the 21s. So I think Sligo, maybe that injection from McManus, he was big for Sligo Rovers last year, and maybe McManus coming back can give Sligo that little bit of pep they need, because they haven't started well.
For sure. Well, Aidan, thanks for that. It's been a week really not short of talking points in the League of Ireland, and 5 big games to look forward to this weekend. So from Dalymount Park and from United Park, we'll have our post-match review video online on the Irish Independent on Friday night, and we'll have all the latest reaction to this weekend's games here on the Irish Independent. Thanks for watching.